The Vethari Empire had never bowed to anyone. For 300 years, their warships had crossed the void between stars like silver blades slicing silk, and every civilization they encountered had two choices: submit or burn. 47 species had chosen the former. None had been given a second chance to choose. Then they found Earth. Owen Calloway had not planned on becoming a symbol. He was 34 years old, a former Marine-turned-diplomat, and possessed of a face so unremarkable that colleagues joked the UN had hired him specifically because he looked too ordinary to intimidate anyone. He had brown eyes, a scar above his left eyebrow from a bar fight in Kandahar that he never talked about, and a habit of drinking terrible coffee at 2 in the morning when negotiations ran long. He had not planned on marrying a queen, either. Yet here he was. Luna Vethar, Queen of the Crimson Throne, Sovereign of the Seven Reaches, first daughter of the Eternal Star. She went by Luna to Owen because he'd stumbled over her full title during their first meeting, and she had laughed for the first time in 4 years. She was not what humanity had expected from a conqueror. She was tall, yes. All Vethari were, their bodies adapted to a world with higher gravity, with iridescent silver skin that shifted faintly blue at her temples when she was deep in thought. Her eyes were entirely black, pupils and iris indistinguishable, and they missed nothing. The marriage was political. Everyone understood this. Luna's war council had advised conquest. Owen's superiors had advised surrender. Neither had listened to their advisors. "You understand," Luna had said during the final treaty session, her translator rendering her resonant voice into clean English, "that this union is binding under Vethari law. You become consort of the Empire. You will be expected to serve, to advise, and to represent your species before the throne." Owen had looked at the star maps behind her, 47 civilizations absorbed, Earth's blue marble circled in red, and said, "I understand. Do you understand that humans don't surrender? We're not joining your empire. We're joining you. There's a difference." She had stared at him for a very long time. Then she had agreed to the treaty. The first year was careful, respectful, distant. Owen sat in on war councils and said nothing that was not asked of him. He learned to read Vethari body language, the tightening of secondary eyelids that meant discomfort, the slow spreading of fingers that meant approval. He learned that Luna slept 3 hours a night, that she had not taken a meal in the presence of another living being in a decade, and that every general in her council believed the marriage was a leash she had placed around humanity's neck. Luna, for her part, watched him. She was not subtle about it. Vethari didn't practice human subtlety. They considered it a form of social illness. "You are not afraid," she said one evening, when the palace's third moon was rising and they sat in what had become their customary silence over documents they both pretended required more attention than they did. "I'm afraid constantly," Owen said. "I just don't let it make decisions for me." She considered this. On Vethar, a warrior who admits fear is considered weak. On Earth, he said, setting down his coffee, a person who can't admit fear is considered dangerous. To themselves and everyone around them. Another long silence. "Your planet," Luna said finally, "is very strange." "Yeah," Owen agreed. "We like it." The Croth came on a Tuesday. Nobody had expected the Croth. The Croth were, in the diplomatic consensus of 17 species, finished, a broken civilization scattered across dead systems after Luna's grandmother had ended their last empire 3 generations ago. Ghost fleets, some called them. Remnants. But remnants, it turned out, had spent 60 years rebuilding in secret, nursing their hatred like a coal kept warm beneath ash. They came with 2,000 ships and a weapon that disrupted Vethari communication arrays, a surgical strike designed to isolate, fragment, and destroy. They hit the palace first. Owen had 12 seconds of warning. He spent 11 of them getting Luna behind a reinforced bulkhead, and one of them breaking the wrist of a Croth advance scout who had come through the servant's entrance. "Owen," Luna began, "stay behind me." She had never been told to stay behind anyone. She had not obeyed an order since she was 6 years old, and her mother had told her to stop climbing the citadel's outer walls. She stayed behind him. What followed was not elegant. It was not the graceful combat of Vethari war dancers or the ceremonial dueling that her generals practiced in the palace courtyard. Owen fought the way a man fights when he has decided with absolute clarity that something will not happen, with a relentlessness that had no style, and required no applause. He used walls, door frames, the weight of a Croth soldier's own momentum. He moved through the palace corridors like he had mapped them years ago, which he had, because he was a man who read emergency evacuation plans for fun. For soldiers. Then 6. Then 3 more who came through the east corridor. Luna watched. She had seen warriors. She had made warriors, broken and rebuilt soldiers into weapons over decades of empire. She knew what elite combat looked like. She had assumed, as had her entire council, as had every Vethari strategist who'd reviewed human military records, that humanity's physical limitations made them a secondary threat. Smaller, slower, less. What she watched in that corridor rewrote every assumption. It was not that Owen was faster than a Vethari warrior or stronger. He wasn't. What he was, she realized with a chill that ran beneath her silver skin, was committed. There was nothing in him that was calculating the odds, weighing survival probability, preparing retreat options. He had made a decision and his entire existence had collapsed into executing it. He did not fight like a man who was afraid of dying. He fought like a man who had simply not scheduled it for today. The palace was retaken in 4 hours. Vethari reinforcements, rerouted through backup arrays Owen had personally flagged as redundancy infrastructure during a council meeting 3 months prior. A suggestion that had been dismissed as human overcaution at the time, arrived in time to push the Croth fleet back to the system's edge. When it was over, Luna found him in the medical bay, getting a gash on his forearm sealed by a Vethari medic who kept glancing at him like she wasn't sure he was real. "You were briefed on the redundancy arrays," she said. "I read everything," Owen said. "The council dismissed that recommendation." "I know. I updated the maintenance logs anyway and flagged them for quiet reactivation. Figured it was easier to apologize than ask permission." He looked at her steadily. "Are you going to tell me I overstepped?" Luna was quiet for a moment. Outside, her generals were already in emergency session, recalculating, reorganizing. The Croth were broken again. This time, she suspected, finally, word of the defense would spread. It always did. "My war council," she said at last, "believes I married a symbol." "I know. They believe the marriage was a cage I built for your species." "I know that too." She looked at him. This unremarkable, ordinary-faced man with coffee-stained cuffs and a galaxy of quiet competence behind his brown eyes, and said something she had not said, in any language, to any living being in 15 years of reign. "I think I was wrong about what this was." Owen said nothing. He understood, in the way that people who are very good at being quiet understand, that she wasn't finished. "I think," Luna said slowly, "that I may have been the one who was given a cage." "Not a cage," Owen said. "A partner." Outside, her empire was already carrying the story across 14 star systems, that the human consort had held the palace with his bare hands, that the queen's husband had fought like something ancient and unkillable, like humanity's long history of surviving the unsurvivable had distilled into one man standing between a queen and the dark. The Vethari word for it, the concept they reached for when they tried to translate what they had witnessed, was Velna, the one who does not stop. Owen Calloway drank terrible coffee and read evacuation plans and held the line. He was very, very human. And that, in the end, was the most frightening thing the universe had ever encountered.